Hello, welcome back to my second episode on looking at QGIS. Last time I downloaded and installed QGIS on a laptop. This time I've moved upstairs to my desktop, and going to be looking at a little bit of data from the not western portion of West Virginia, but eastern portion of Ohio. And just kind of getting an idea of what QGIS is going to be able to do for us. Now, again, we can go through and do our traditional save, open, those type of things under project, under edit. We're going to be able to bring through some features and such as we're looking at the data sets. We're not going to do that today, but we could. We can move around with our view. We can create a new map, create a new 3D map, which we'll do on another video. And basically do all the types of things that you would expect to be able to move around the data, to be able to create bookmarks and share those locations with others. As we look at the layers themselves, we can begin to create new layers, add layers, being able to edit attribute tables, toggling editing on and off, setting scales for visible layers, so all the normal things that you'd expect to be able to do for your data layers within your map frame. Then whenever we get to the important portions, we're getting into settings for the user profiles, the style managers, keyboard shortcuts to set up how you want to be able to work within the environment. What you want to be able to do within the environment, then we'll be able to look at installing plugins. Whenever we look, for instance, let's see, have we installed anything yet? Real quick, I'll just install for later, since we'll be playing around with some LiDAR data in a future episode. We can do things like installing LAS tools directly, so I'll just click on install plugin and that'll take care of itself. I can uninstall it from here. I can go through and look for other opportunities, other plugins that are available, and again, this short list is just the ones that have LAS in the name. Looking at the wealth of plugins that people have made available, everything from being able to interact with city JSON files all the way through to getting down to the bottom real quick, being able to work with zoom views and zoom levels that you've prescribed. Haven't used those before. So, lots of different things that you can do in terms of bringing in plugins, and those will then be available through your plugins or through your processing capabilities over here. As we go through vector, and that's where I want to focus today, is on what we can do with vectors, is a few different things. Now I'm bringing in data. We have water from the Ohio River Valley, let's see, down here, and the Muskingum River. So we have Marietta right over here, and Williamstown, I believe, West Virginia on the other side of the Ohio. Whenever I'm looking at this, or brought this in, this is actually looking at archaeological features in the landscape in Marietta. This is largely what my dissertation data was. So these were enclosures from the Hopewellian period. So these are kind of the edges of where the earthen enclosures would have been. Individual mounds are in these locations. These are all National Register sites, so known data, so I'm not showing you anything that isn't public record. And I do have other data, such as sites within the watershed. I included this one because I'm not going to turn it on so you can't see the data, but I did want to be able to show you things that we can do with the data. We can zoom to the layer, so I can zoom back out to an area that's included. So I've zoomed to where all of that data is located, so we'd be able to see it all. If I wanted to be able to show it in the overview, I could do that. I could show the number of features. Most importantly, of course, is being able to duplicate the layer for cartographic purposes and being able to remove the layer so that it's no longer there. So I'm going to zoom back into my mounds. So zoom to layer. Zoom out just a little bit. So whenever we're looking at something like this in the vector data set, I want to be able to say, okay, well, I want to know what's going on with a certain distance of these mounds. In this case, I'm going to go to Geoprocessing Tools, and as you would expect, utilize the Buffer tool. So I've selected my location. I want to look at it not at 10 meters, let's say more along the lines of 50 meters from each of the locations, round, join styles, round. I'll keep all the defaults at this point. So I'm going to run this, and now we have new buffered. Now, of course, if I wanted to go through and create larger buffers to see what outside of the enclosures were within this area, and a common distance would be about 1 kilometer. So I'm going to run this with 1,000 meters, and we can see a little bit difference between them. If we, of course, wanted to go through and change the names, go into source. That one was the 1,000 meter or 1 kilometer. We can change our symbology here. Here, I'm going to switch it to gradient and leave the default gradient, I guess. We can also look at the labels if we want to turn labels on or off. I'm going to go through and turn on the labels and use the site names for those labels. I'll apply that real quick. We'll keep going down through. Diagrams, 3D view, not going to worry about that because I don't have 3D data. Fields associated with this. So as you can see, there's lots of different items that are really what you would expect as you're going through. The digitizing capabilities here are for QGIS are built into the layers, whereas whenever we're talking about something like ArcMap or ArcGIS Pro, they're defaults that you set really more within the settings of the program as opposed to the individual layers. So we'll get out, turn that off. Of course, that's going to take my labels away, and I want to keep those labels, so we'll come back over here with the buffered for the 50 meters and turn those on. Well, what if I want to know if these mounds were within a certain distance of a water source? Well, again, using our same capability of our buffering, we could go through and create buffers of different sizes of the water. We could do a distance to measurement, but instead of doing that right now, I want to focus more on actually, let's jump down to analysis tools and do a nearest neighbor analysis. So how far apart are these? What's the distance to the nearest neighbor on average for these? So we're going to select our mounds. We're going to save the results to a temporary file, run it, and whenever we bring it up, we can see that we have observed mean distance, expected mean distance, nearest neighbor index, number of points. Again, there were only 3 points in the z-score for our statistical purposes. So there's a lot here that we can play around and utilize. Now again, I'm just skimming the surface, and if you want to get a better understanding of what you can do with QGIS, this is a great place to start. The QGIStutorials.com webpage gives you things, basically, how to get started by adding data under basic GIS operations. The intermediate GIS operations looks at table and spatial joins, creating heat maps, so getting a little bit into analysis, animating time series data, for instance. Advanced GIS operations, again, nearest neighbor, we just did that, sampling raster data, interpolating point data, those type of things, network analysis, Python scripting, web mapping, and these are all provided free of charge, of course, on the QGIStutorials.com webpage. So it's a great little resource. I'll mention others as we go through other videos. Now, of course, I also have raster in here, so we can begin to play around a little bit, and that's what we'll be doing next time. We'll be going through creating different derived data sets from the raster data that you see here, which is LiDAR, and beginning to play around with this interaction between the rasters, the derived rasters, and the vectors that we have here. So come back next time to see where I take that. Thanks. Have a good day.